So hi everybody, how are you? I'm Liz and this is my husband Ron, and we are the founders of the Paranormal Society of Bradenton, Florida. We also run the downtown Bradenton Ghost Walk, and we also have a Bradenton Beach Ghost Walk. But the beach one is closed because of red tide right now. And also I am the author of the newly released Haunted Manatee County. It was released 2 weeks ago, 2 days after my 60th birthday, so that was nice for me. I mean, how could you not ask for a better present? And it did sell out the first day it was on Amazon. What I didn't realize is that it is the very first book written about Manatee County. I did not know that there has never been one written. So I thought that was kind of interesting. But I chose, when I wrote it, to write about when Manatee County was 5,000 square miles. So that included a lot of other counties. I did include Sarasota, but when I turned it in, they took it out and said, there's your book, second book. Because it's such a huge county now, and there's a lot of stories that between what happens in here and happens in Sarasota, that filled up, most of this area. So they wanted me just to continue on the Bradenton area and the other counties and save Sarasota for another time. Which I will tell you that Sarasota's, got some activity too. But Bradenton is very active. Just like Jeff was telling you, the different stories of things. He works with us a lot. We've really gotten to take, when we have a question on an investigation, we'll come back to him and say, can you go back out with us? Recently we did an investigation with a house, and we felt really bad for the woman because she was being just terrorized. And she kept saying, I know it's demonic, I know it's demonic, and it would answer to us that it was demonic. But I kind of had my doubts about it because, like Jeff says, most demonic isn't really as much demonic as people think it is. I always tell people that if you're an asshole in life, you're going to be an asshole in death because your same personality goes with you. Well, we knew that when we walked into the master bedroom, I could just feel, we opened the closet doors, you could just feel the energy coming out of it, and it wasn't a good feeling. I always tell people to pay attention when you get the goosebumps, because when you do get the goosebumps, usually there's a reason you're getting the goosebumps. So I was just walking around, another investigator was with me, and all of a sudden he dropped the equipment and left the room. And I looked at him, I said, what are you doing here? I can't stay in here. I said, okay. So then I started questioning, and it kept answering that it was demonic and evil. So I said, okay, we're going to stop here. And we came and talked to Jeff. And he said, well, let me go back out with you. Well, when we went out there, before he got there, one of the other investigators said, do you know someone's coming? Meter lit up to red. And when it lights up to red, that's a very strong yes. And so he continued. And it was telling us that Jeff was on his way. He was coming down the street. And when he pulled up, I was outside waiting for him, and I said, you ready? Because usually he walks around the outside of the property. Well, he chose to tell me, nope, they're calling me right in the house. He walked right into the house, he walked right into the master bedroom, and he said, there's a porthole in this closet. He immediately closed the porthole, but there were two spirits that were left, and one was a man and one was a woman. Well, the woman wanted to go with Jeff, but the man didn't. So Jeff did a little, his little juju stuff. And the man stayed, but the woman left with him. Now the man wanted so bad for the woman to stay. And about 2 weeks later, they contacted me and said, it's still going on. I said, well, give it a little bit more time. I think he's really angry because we took the woman away. And they contacted me about a month after that, and they said, it's peaceful and quiet. Now, he wasn't demonic. What he was a very mean man. He just was angry about everything, so he was coming across as being, evil and demonic. And we have had people that will say they're, haunted, and we've come to their house and, they've staged everything, because they want to get on TV, And I will tell you, if you watch the TV shows, please don't take them for 100% truth, because a lot of it is, recreated or staged or something just to get the ratings up. But we do as much as we can, and we try to debunk as much as we can because we want them to realize that it is the truth, And we love going with Jeff because he goes with the spiritual, and we kind of tend to the scientific part, and together we can, make it that it's okay, yeah, there really is something here, and here's the proof, not just feelings, but the equipment's telling us. So we do use a lot of equipment. I always tell people that this is not a business because we do it, all investigations for free. If you want to donate, you can donate, but we don't ask for any money. So this is the most expensive hobby around because the equipment can cost. My thermal camera, which is just a little, like the little square app you can put, it's just that size that I put on my phone, actually costed $400. But if I wanted a handheld one, we were looking at $18,000. So I still want the handheld one though. But it does get very costly. But I tell people the best thing to do if they have, a spirit around and they don't feel uncomfortable about it, try talking to them. Use your phone. You've got a recorder on your phone. Use your phone. See if they'll answer, because you can't always hear them, but you may pick it up on a tape recorder. And always go with your gut feeling. I know Jeff says the heart. I always say the gut, because if you feel something's around, there probably is something. Unless you get into the case where he was talking about the woman that had the little issue that we went to and got Baker acted afterwards. But there are those cases. And those are very hard to explain to people that, we've had people get mad at us because we can't, say you're haunted. If we can't say it and they're thinking they are, they get a little upset. I know everybody's probably heard about the Sarasota Opera House, and they have a lot of ghost stories. There's supposed to be a death chair in there that if you sit and you will die in it. Well, our entire group has sat in it and we're still alive. And I will tell you that it was the cleanest place I've ever seen, because even on our DVR system, we didn't catch a speck of dust. So when we went back to tell them, there was nothing, they didn't seem really thrilled. But the older part of the building that they have built into now, and it's attached to the players, we did catch activity in there. And it is a woman that actually takes the stars from the green room to the wig room to the makeup room to the, all the way through to the stage. And when we thought it was an actor or somebody that had been there, and when we got to stage, she disappeared. So we went back through the steps again, and finally we started talking to her in the green room. And she told us that her favorite actor was Tony Danza because he had just been there. And she liked to work with him. So I thought that was kind of neat. But she did tell us that she was part of the staff. So they do have one spirit there that we have communicated with. But the theater itself, we didn't catch anything. And the death chair does not exist. I'm sorry to say. So if you wanted to go die, and sit in the chair, you can't use theirs. But it is pretty interesting. I have to laugh because I have a joke with Jeff now. Everybody calls him Charman, squeezably soft. Well, he actually is the Charman because we went with him to a house that he was going to do a cleansing on, and he wanted us to verify that there was something there. And Jeff and I spent an hour in the bathroom. I sat on the toilet, he sat on the counter, and we talked to the late wife of the man that lived there. She wasn't happy with the new wife. So she was going from bathroom to bathroom, the guest bathroom to the master bathroom. Jeff blocked her off from going into the master bath. So for an hour, we were in there talking to her. So I call it, and it's going to be in my next book, because it is in Sarasota, the Charman Toilet Investigation. I sat on the toilet with a camera for an hour. I can say that. So now I call him the Charman. But it was really interesting. And then he did end up getting her to cross over. Unfortunately, the woman didn't take it very well, and she thought there was an evil spirit after her in there. So I think there was some other issues that were probably going on with her. But most of our investigations, we find the answers to. We do a lot of research on the property. And as you can see through the book, I've done a lot of research. I've spent 3 years doing it for the Ghost Walk. Then I went on to do the book, more research for the book. And we do research all the time when we do an investigation. We have to know what's involved. And we actually did have, one of our team members did a thorough research for us that we were going out to do an investigation that Jeff went to cleanse later. And it was really strange. One of the stories was that a gentleman who was a drag queen had disappeared, and 5 years later they found his body. But no one had ever reported him missing, not even his mother. So I went through the list of all the people that had died in the area. He came up. He answered yes, he was there. So I thought that was kind of interesting that of all the people on the list, he was actually the furthest away, but yet he was there in her apartment. And the orb activity is something else in her place. It was just floating everywhere. Now, a lot of people say orbs are nothing. No, they are. They are really there. They are spirit energy. And if you go back through snapshots from years and years ago, people will come up to us, oh my God, this is a wedding like 40 years ago. And I'm like, yeah, you got some orbs in there, I mean, they will do that because you'll start noticing, in your old pictures, you'll see an orb. And after class, I'll show you one that I've actually found afterwards. I didn't realize it was there. But it's kind of interesting. And I always tell people to blow up on the orbs because sometimes you will see a face in it. I took a picture, looked at my camera, we were on an investigation, and to us, an orb is an orb. We're like, oh, okay, we caught another orb, whoopee. Well, then I got home and blew up on it, and when I blew up on it, you could actually see his head, his arms, and his legs. He was starting to form into human shape when I caught it, so I thought that was kind of neat. So I always tell people to take and look at the orbs, blow them up, because you never know what you catch. And also take 2 pictures. If you're going to take the first one and take another one immediately after, because if you did catch something and it's not in the first one, you've got evidence, or a second one, you've got evidence. If you've got so you've got 2 pictures. Here it wasn't here it is. That's the way we always do it. And on the Ghost Walk, I always tell people to do that too, because we have had a lot of people catch a lot of strange things on the Ghost Walk. We also tell you that if you get a feeling of someone you want to stop right then and there and take a picture, do it, because somebody's telling you to take their picture. It may not show up, but somebody's trying to tell you something. And I don't know if anybody's been anywhere where they've felt an ice cold chill go through them. Yeah, okay, ice cold chill, we feel that a lot. I mean, a lot. Sometimes Jeff will describe things as being warm and comforting, but when we go into a place, we feel them as ice cold. And we were in Palma Cemetery during broad daylight in July, and I have a fascination with tombstones, so I like to walk around the old ones. So we're walking around the older part of the cemetery, and all of a sudden I walked up to a grave and was standing there looking at his tombstone, and out of the ground, that's the way it felt like I came. I had a hand grab my leg like this. It was extremely ice cold, and it took me the rest of the day to warm up. And we're talking July. So you can, that's how cold it is. I always tell everybody, how ice cube feels? It's colder than that. It's a very cold feeling. We've been to Fogarty Cemetery, and he actually was told to back off by a Confederate soldier. So there are, a lot of activity around. I love going, like I said, into the cemeteries because I find it just really interesting. And I will tell you that the most active area of the cemetery is the left. Don't ask me why, but it always seems to be the left that we catch the most activity in.
Of every cemetery?
Of every cemetery we've been in, it's always been the left. Yep, so like if you drove in, because we've been to Skyway a lot, if you drive in, like where Skyway Cemetery is, right off before you get to 275, if you drive in the main gate and go to the left and go back, that's the most active area. Yeah. And there is laws about, if it's posted or they have a gate, you can't go in. But we did check with the sheriff's office, and you can go into cemeteries at night as long as they don't have a gate and it's not posted. So there are a lot of old cemeteries around, like the Parish Cemetery. Fogarty Cemetery has a gate, but activity happens there during the day. Palma doesn't have a gate. It has a church in the middle of it, so you can walk through these things, at night. Sometimes they, will get a little upset, but, usually they don't. But our favorite one is the Minnesota Cemetery, because Charles Ringley's there. And we love Charles. We were the only paranormal group in the world that has been able to do Ralph Capel's house. We've done John Ringley's house. We've done Hester and Charles Ringley's, and we've done Paul Crosley's. So we've done every house on that block an investigation at. And everything's been released except for John's, and that was because we were snuck in by the curator, and we made an agreement that when he retired, we would release it. I also made the agreement with him that when he passed away, I would come visit him at John's, because he actually was curator longer than John and lived in the house. Well, he just retired, and so we're going to be releasing that evidence that we caught there. But at Charles, we've been there several times, and Charles actually we caught a large shadow walking across, and then we caught a small shadow walking back. So it was kind of neat because we figured that was probably Charles and one of the children. But in Charles' house, they have a music room, and it has the old pipe organ in it. And I always say to people that John and Charles Ringley actually are the inventors of surround sound, because they had pipe organs, and all the pipes went through the house, and whenever they played the pipe organ, you could hear it anywhere on the property. So wasn't that surround sound? Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's, so I think that's neat. But if you go in there and you play an opera song, and you have a tape recorder going, you may pick up Robert, Charles' son, saying, "I sang that," or you might hear him singing it, because he likes to know, that he's around and he's still singing. The old rumor is that Edith, Charles' wife, hated that Hester was psychic. We actually asked her if she was upset about it, and we caught her answering no. So she was never upset that her daughter is. So we debunked that rumor, So I think that's nice, because they did enjoy, her and everything. And Edith actually is the savior of the circus. What a lot of people think is that John was the one that was the big circus man. John was just a front man. Charles is the one that actually ran the circus. And so it was kind of neat to see this. But when Charles died, and he did die in the house there, and they had his funeral there, the viewing, everything was done in there. And when he died, the circus was broke. Edith took every dime of her money and paid off every debt. And then the circus went on. And since then, when she took over and did all that, they decided to call her Mrs. Charles, because they always called him Mr. Charlie. So she became Mrs. Charles because of taking over and doing everything. But Charles actually did die from running the circus. It got to him so much that he ended up having a breakdown and died in his home. And at the time, John was at his house. John ran over and was there with his brother when he died. Now, the interesting fact about the Ringley brothers is that John died on the 2nd, years later, but Charles died on the 3rd of December. So when we went to John Ringley's house, we went at midnight, 11 o'clock, and we kind of went for the switchover for when one died and one. And it was interesting because John actually led us up to the top room in the tower where a lot of guests stayed, and he had us go up there, and he told us that's where he went after Charles died. So I thought that was kind of neat to follow his steps through the whole place, Well, we do quite a bit of investigating, and crazy things have happened. And I'll tell you, when you're doing an investigation at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning and you've run out of questions to ask, we do sit there and go, okay, is one of us cuter than the other? Yeah, I mean, we do. You get so tired, you just come up with things. And we don't, nothing we do is like the TV shows. I love this thing my daughter posted on our website one time, and it was what the TV thinks of you, what your parents think of you, what your friends think of you, and then it says what you really do, and you see all these people going leaning against the wall going, yeah, that's exactly what we do. Okay, is anybody going to talk to us?
We wait for something to happen.
So we use a lot of different equipment. Like I said, it's very expensive at times. And if you just want to, try to see if something's around you, you can just use your tape recorder and just talk and go with your gut feeling. But we use a thermal camera. We use DVR recorders. We use K2s, which I do have one here and I'll show you. We do have an app sometimes that we do use. I don't know if anybody's noticed the Ghost Writer apps that has the little ghost red spot or green spot that shows up on your phone. It don't work, okay? It's not true. Everybody's like, oh my gosh, look. No, it's not. It's just a little toy.
It's a game.
Yeah. But, I mean, we have voice boxes. We have, what else do we have? We have so much stuff.
We have pin lights. Actually,
laser light, yeah.
Laser lights, they're pin lights, and they put dots throughout the room, and you can actually see shadows move through those dots. We have another device that puts off EMFs. We had one of our technicians that's on our on our crew built an EMF pump, and what this does is it pumps out EMFs,
More energy.
more energy for the spirits to grab onto to help them communicate with our instruments.
Yeah.
And you keep that away from the instruments because it will set off the instruments.
And you keep it away from me because I get a headache.
And it will give you a headache if you're sensitive to EMFs. EMFs can cause you headaches, nausea, can cause you vomiting. In some cases, it's been known to cause cancer. People who live by high wire lines and in the poorer cities, they have a lot of problem with EMFs. We had a couple that we investigated their condo, and it was a retirement center, and they bought the unit, and of course the lady was seeing ghosts, and they called us in, and we went in there, and we were sitting down at the table, and I just sat the EMF device on the table, and it went straight to red, and I was wondering, why is this going off? We're sitting at the table. Well, I walk in the front room, the same thing is happening. I go to her bed with a different type meter. It's called a millimeter, and it measures in digital. I can read the exact number. And it was, 24, 25 in the middle of her bed.
Now, usually in your house, it should be 2 to 3. A normal reading
Yeah,
should be. So
yeah.
they're getting 24 on their bed.
On their bed.
Yeah.
And she swore every night that she would get up, that this ghost, she named Spook Annie, would get up and try to get her husband.
She'd crawl into bed when she went up to go to the bathroom.
You mean
So
like
so,
with him?
Yes.
no, yeah, that's what she thought. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it was kind of interesting, but we did find the highest reading in their house was 63.
Yeah.
And we ran cameras for 48 hours.
Yeah, we ran our cameras for 48 hours.
When we went to pick them up, she said, "No, you're going to see me getting out of bed quite a bit because I get up during the night." She never got out of
She
bed.
never
not
got
once.
out of bed.
So we knew, immediately. So we went and explained to him because she wouldn't accept it. We explained to him, and it made sense that the readings were. So we showed him, these readings and EMFs. This is what it can do. He did his own research, and they're 92 at this time. He said, "I'm not going to move. We're just going to have to put up with Spook Annie and what she thinks. What is going on, which is nothing. It's just the way she's thinking because she's made to hallucinate." And she recently passed away, though, and he's moved out of the place. But it is retirement villas, and it made me wonder, okay, how many other people in that area, because they're villas, are affected by the same thing? Because their condo had all the junction boxes, all the air conditioning, all this stuff, and all the wiring went underground to the place next door. Now, while we were walking around the outside property, the other side had no readings.
Yeah.
But it was a villa. Every villa like that, they had all the wiring on one side, and then on the other side it was nothing. So how many that had the wiring were actually thinking they had dementia or something was going on, and it really was high EMFs. So some things can be explained, we can, debunk things, but then we come across things that aren't. Recently we were on ABC 7 Suncoast News because they decided to do something about local folklores and legends. And when they contacted us, they said, "Can we do an interview with you at some haunted place?" And I said, "Well, let me call the owners of the council." I don't know if anybody knows the council. It's downtown, right across the street from the courthouse. It's an old hamburger joint, and it also has been known to be the men's pool hall. Well, it's known for illegal prostitution and gambling. And guess who used to hang out there? All the people that worked at the courthouse. The judges, the lawyers, the police. Okay, it makes sense, So they called us in saying, because the owner, he passed away and his son took over and he decided to sell it. Well, the two women that own the Toasted Mango bought it. And they felt very uncomfortable. They felt like they weren't welcomed in there. Well, no, they weren't, because it was a men's only place. So when we were doing our investigation, there was Ron and another male investigator, he usually sits at the DVR and watches what's going on. And the other investigator was walking around with the camera. He went back to a pool hall. He was playing pool. He ended up getting a woman over the voice box trying to pick him up. And I said, okay, you know. So the woman and I, we weren't getting anything. And I said, okay, that's it. I said, okay, we're going to play like we're prostitutes. Because sometimes you have to go back to what actually was going on and have to play a character. So we did, and eventually we were sitting there going, come here, big boy. Come here and sit with us. I actually named her Fancy, the other girl. But as soon as we started doing that, we got an activity. So while we were doing this, the woman that was with me, her husband was taking the video camera and going across the room. And we were sitting all of us were on the opposite side of the room. There was nobody else there. And, you know, we didn't actually see this, but we heard our voice box go off saying, hey, 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 hey. And it was on a pool table. Well, when we were reviewing the evidence, you actually see a man walk into the view of the camera and stop at the pool table. We actually caught a full-fledged spirit walking into the pool camera. So it is kind of neat. If you want to look at it, we do have it on our website. It plays in high speed, medium speed, and then slow speed. If you're looking at it, look at the where the pool table is. You'll see bright light. You have to kind of look right in that area because you'll start seeing him walk up. On the slow speed, it's easier to see. But he just walks right up to the camera and leaned over the table, and I think that's about the moment that we caught him saying, hey, hey. I think he was trying to call us over to play pool, or he might have been calling us over to, you know, pick us up for the night. We don't know. But they have asked us to come back and do another investigation because as soon as we showed it to them, they said, this is the guy we see. Well, what was really cool was ABC came out. And he said, did you really catch something? I said, I don't know. You make the judgment of it. And I hadn't revealed it, and I played it for him. And he goes, holy crap. I said, okay, do you think we caught something to be enough on the news? Yeah, you did. So it was kind of neat that we caught that, you know. But usually it's orb activity and voice box and K2s going off. And this is a K2. I don't know if anybody's watched the ghost shows. It will light up like that. Okay, it stays on the first green. It always will stay up there. That just means it's on. If it lights up any more, that means we have some type of activity or high EMFs. So we usually take our Mel meter, which is stronger, and it gives us a readout of the numbers, and we take it through the place first as a, you know, just to measure the EMF, so we know where this is going to go off for electricity. If it's in an area that this goes off and it doesn't happen to be a high electricity area and the, you know, EMFs were okay, we know we have spirit activity. Now, last night, I know most of you heard Jeff telling the story about we were outside I was doing my book signing, and I'm just going to sit there. Let's see what happens. So last night, we were using on our phone to set this up and decided, well, let's just play around and ask some questions, you know, see if anything's here. There's got to be something here. Jeff's here. You know, he's got to bring it in. Well, I didn't know the story of the little girl. So we were talking, and this came up, and this is called the ghost hunting tool. A lot of people don't believe in it, and it does give you, you know, some things you have to kind of, that doesn't have anything to do with it. So you know, kind of second guess it. But we were sitting there, and it came up child. And then when I was like, oh, do we have a little child here? This is just like the K2 right here, and it went up to red. And it says child right there. And you'll see the bar go up like here when it's going to say another word. So we were sitting there and we were just talking away, and sure enough, she was talking away to us, and she brought up pillow. And I thought, no, that has nothing to do with it. And then when I said, you know who Shaman Jeff is? She says, exorcist. And I said, no, he's not an exorcist. If you want to be crossed over, he'll help you cross over, but he doesn't. I don't think he's going to worry about you. And we got a word coming up because it just vibrated. No, it's not showing. But it's really funny because she was just, you know, just thought he was going to cross her over. And I said, no, we know, you're fine. She told us she'd like to play with the kids and the gemstones, you know, and stuff like that. I'm just going to lay that down because we'll see what happens. That's the phone. If you ever go do a ghost tour with me, I will tell you at the very beginning, if you put your phone next to it, lights it up. And usually I hear the mothers going, don't do that, because I'll say, if you do it, I'm going to videotape you. And so, guess who's the one that always does it? Mom.
Oh.
Wow, look at this. I got something.
They're always, oh, I got that ghost. I'm like, excuse me, I get to videotape you. Oh, crap. But she would just kept on talking away. And she, besides, then a little while later, she said mattress. And I'm thinking, pillow, mattress? Do you want Jeff to make a bed for you? And it bottomed out. I mean, it was no activity on the bars at all. And now it's saying date. Okay, is anybody going on a date tonight? Or it's telling me to ask a date or something. But, so it bottomed out. And then I said, do you actually have a bed in the house? And it went all the way up to red. So I'm going to do research on what this property was and who lived here, and see if a child has died. Jeff told me that she did come with the house. She's always been here. So I want to do a little research to find out, because she may have had a room in there, and that's where her bed and mattress are, That would make sense. So I know she's watching. You got a date tonight?
I don't know.
So, but the book actually was really kind of interesting for me, because I love history. I've always been a history buff. I love the stories and stuff. And, a ghost story comes from some story. Even if it's true or not, it started from something. And, of course, stories can get bigger and bigger. So, I mean, it was really interesting listening to people tell me the stories that they have heard through the years, or things that have happened to us on investigations. By the way, if you want to go down Main Street, say hello to all the spirits, because there's quite a few down that street. They really are very active. And does anybody remember the Manatee Players? The Riverfront Theater, the old building that's torn down, and now they're building that hotel. I'm checking into the hotel. I'm going to be the first one there. Crash. Okay.
Uh-huh.
Are you going to make a crashing noise because it just came up saying crash? There you go. But that place it was active before. Everybody that worked at the Players, they knew it was active. They knew who was there. And once they tore the Players down, it's really become more active. There's a lot of spirits there. And it's really interesting. Oh, we got somebody that's here. Are you sitting in the chair? Yep. Are you the little girl? Are you a male? We got a male sitting right here in the chair. He's going off.
Almost went up the red.
Yep.
It did go to red.
Did it?
Yeah.
Carson, is that your name? Is your name Carson? Are you trying to pick her up on a date? Because it did come up with date.
It did.
And then it's lit up and telling it's a man, Well, there you go. You better watch
There's
out.
your date.
Okay. Yeah. And then look at this. This is going all the way up to red juice. Okay, we got a ghost hitting on this young lady right here. Oh, yeah, he's really, look at this.
That's usually the kind that like me.
But the city let us into the Players just before they tore it down.
Manatee Players, yeah.
Yeah, the old Manatee Players. And it was very dangerous investigation because the building was so rickety. There was rebarb sticking out of the ground. The stairs would sway back and forth when you walked up the stairs. But we caught a lot of activity in there, and that's in the book too.
I will let you know, too, that animals can be seen. We did see a cat.
It is here.
It is here. Who's here? Carson? That's your name, Carson? Okay. What year? Well, let's do it this way. Are you from the 1900s? Are you from the 1800s? Are you from the 1700s? Okay, so we know he's from the 1800s. So he's been around for a while. Oh,
Yep.
yeah. He agreed to that one. I want to change it so you guys all can see it. but I don't want to mess up with the activity. Let's see if we can get it still going. Okay, that doesn't upset you, does it, that we moved you? Everybody wants to meet you, Carson. Can everybody say hello to Carson?
Hi, Carson.
Different. Yeah, I imagine this is a little different, and we're in a class, and you came to join us. I'm glad to meet you. Is your name different from Carson? No. Usually we give them 10 seconds to reply back on the meter because they have to have the energy. Yeah, see, they're agreeing. He's agreeing with me. Carson, are you still trying to hit on this young lady?
Yep.
Okay, Carson, we'll have to make sure she's saged before she leaves the area.
Please.
But, you know, when we do the questions with the meters and stuff, and we do have a voice box that we usually have, we depend more on the K2s than anything. But when we're doing it and it's flashing like that, to try to figure out their names or things like that, we always go, does your name start with A, B, C? And then if they don't light up, then we go, you know, all the way down the alphabet, just like I did with the years, same thing. So that's how we try to figure out. And then it kind of helps us, if we have history on the property, you know, to figure out who we are actually communicating with. So I'm wondering if Carson might have to do
Says
east. Carson, do you have anything to do with the little girl that's here? And I will let you know that sometimes they can read your mind. As you saw, it went off as I started to. Sometimes they can read what you're going to say, and I can actually give you the equipment, and you can probably think a question in your head. And if you have the energy, and they have that can suck onto that energy, then they'll answer it without you even speaking. So it is kind of neat. Oh, he's liking. He's enjoying this.
The car crash. Wasn't there a crash last
Said
night?
crash. And it said
Oh, yeah.
east.
Was there a car crash out here?
This morning, actually.
Oh, really?
And it made all the power go out. With
It
all
was
the
actually
stores.
right there off of
Was that
13th
east?
or 11th.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
right in front of the town, the school.
So that would
No,
be.
there was also one this morning.
Yeah, three.
Right by
I mean, all of
Motorworks.
the.
By
by
Motorworks.
Motorworks?
Yeah, the beer brewery.
Well,
75.
Yep.
There you go.
Yep.
The crash at Motorworks.
Like,
Yep.
see all the
Oh,
utilities.
across from
It said
Motorworks.
east.
Oh, okay.
That is
okay, but that's not. That would be east of here.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it would be.
Did Carson
Yeah.
cause it?
Because
So,
it was
yeah.
right more or less on the cross street of 13th and 9th.
Yeah, so that would be east of here. Yeah.
cause it?
Or was it a car
So-
and sun and crash?
Could be. I mean, see, that's what with this app you have to figure out. You know, does this pertain to this thing? Okay, now we know that there was a car crash, so crash made sense. East makes sense. You know, but it might take you a little while to figure.
What was that, granddaughter you said?
Grandmother.
Grandmother.
Yep, grandmother. Is someone's grandmother here? Yep. Okay, so.
Did it say yeah?
Yeah. Yep, so that means somebody's traveling along with their grandmother. They're probably guiding you through life. Now, my daughter, you'll even read about it in the book. She says she doesn't believe, but she does because we always do trips together. But she will always say, Grandma's in my room. Okay. How do you know? Your dog is staring in the corner in my room. And I'm like, what? And she's like, he's just sitting here staring at this corner. So I will take the K2 and I'll say, Lorraine, are you in here? Won't light up. I'm like, she's not in here. She goes, give me the meter. Grandma, are you in my room? And the meter goes to red. I'm like, okay. So Grandma's your spirit guide, but she doesn't want to talk to her daughter-in-law. Sounds good. But it is, you know, typical mother-daughter. Yeah. But I mean, it's been, we've been doing this for 8 years. We find it so interesting to, you know, the history and everything. And
I've been told that, and I was confirmed yesterday again with my mentor, that my grandma, my maternal grandma, is one of my spirit guides.
one of
Yeah.
my grandma is one of mine too. It does. You just.
My gift comes from her. My mom has it, and then I have it.
Yeah, I think that a lot of grandmothers stick with their grandchildren a lot just to guide them. I don't find, well, I can't say that for everybody, but for me, my mother, no. No, we didn't get along. Actually, when I had a reading by Jeff, the first time I had it, he goes, "Oh, your mother's here." And I'm like, "No, not my mom. Nope, she's not here." He goes, "She's here. She's a big bright light." And I said, "That's not my mom." The second time I had a reading, he comes in and he says, "Your mom's here." And I said, "Jeff, I told you this before. It's not my mom." He goes, "No, she's showing her true colors." And Liz, I hate to say this, but she kind of looks like the Wicked Witch from The Wizard of Oz. That's my mom! So that, they come across, different ways. So you see them, but I find it interesting. But I do, this is how much we believe in Jeff. And, everybody else has had their experiences with Jeff. But we would come in the store. He didn't know anything about us. And he would always look at me. And the first time, it creeps me out. I didn't know anything about him being a shaman or there being anybody doing readings here. We just walked in the store. And he was just staring at me. And as we're walking through, and I bought a little something, and he picked it up, and he said, "God, you got this stone hot." And I was holding it like this. I don't hold them like this, crunching my hand. I just held it like this. He says, "You really got this stone hot. By the way, your little friend's here." And I said, "My little friend, is it male or female?" He goes, "It's a male." I said, "Okay." We left it at that, and we kept coming back, and then finally he found out that we were the paranormal research group, and we started talking, and he said, "Your little friend comes in here all the time." And I said, "Oh, okay." And then one day, he did the ghost walk with us, and he kept taking pictures of me, and I said, "Would you stop taking pictures of me? It's creeping me out." He goes, "Your little friend's here. I want to try to catch him for you." And I said, "Oh, okay." But it is kind of weird when you're doing a ghost tour and people are taking pictures of you and not the tour, in the places you're telling. So we walked in here one day, and he said, "Oh, Liz, your little friend's here," and he brought a dog. And I said, "Really?" And he said, "Yeah." I started to cry. It had been a year since we had put the dog down that my son gave me before he died. I couldn't believe it, because I've had people sit there and go, "Oh, I can do a reading on you. Who do you want to communicate with?" When he told me from the very first day that he could see my little friend, I knew he was the real thing. There's no way that you could walk away and say, "He's a joke." He didn't know anything about me, and not a word was ever said. So he did find out that day that my son had passed away, and he said, "Oh yeah, he's with you. He's always on your left side, always there." And I always feel my son. By the way, I cannot communicate with my son. He's one of the spirits that does not communicate. I can ask anything I want. He will not light up any meters. He will not talk on any equipment. But I know when he's around, because my son always came up and he hugged me like this. So if he's on my left side, that's why he's there, because I can still feel that feeling. And I was so upset before my book came out that I wanted to see. It's been 21 years since he passed away. He would have been 40 this year. I turned 60. I have a big event that's going on. So I was getting to the point where I was getting upset, and I didn't care what anybody said. "Oh, Liz, he's always with you." I don't want to hear that. I wanted to see him. I wanted to physically see him smile and be at my book launch party. Well, my son's things are all put in a box, in a storage box. I walked into the bedroom that night, and there laying on the floor was a picture of my son that I had forgotten was taken. He never saw, and it had him standing there with a huge smile on his face, and it was laying right there on the floor. And so when I looked at it, I looked down and went, "Oh my God, he's smiling at me." I took that picture and I immediately put it in a frame, and it went to the book launch party, because he was telling me in his way that he was going to be there, which I think was really unique. And if you have experiences like that, take them as that's a sign. A lot of people, they'll leave coins, pennies, they'll find pennies, dimes, things like that. That's somebody telling you that they're there. So just pay attention to those little signs, like Jeff says. They're, trying to communicate with you. They're probably over here going, "Hey, hey, 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 hey," and you're, But if you take a moment to quiet down and just sit there, close your eyes when you get the feeling that someone's around, you'll probably start picking up more and more. And it will start coming through that, yeah, there's somebody there. So it's interesting. So has anybody got any questions? Because like Jeff says, I don't know what time it is, how we're doing on time, But
Probably best
I can't
to
even read
find-
it from there, honey.
You were gonna talk about this
Okay,
property,
okay.
this property?
Oh, okay. Well, I'm going to do some research on it
Oh,
because
okay.
I want to find out, like, who lived in the house to find out if a little girl did die in here.
Okay.
Now we got to check out who Carson is.
St. Fade.
I left here and I went to the gym mine and I was cleaning the gym mine and lo and behold, somebody was playing with buckets.
It's a little girl because we
Yes, it was.
We-
And
we-
she tips me.
were sitting outside last night talking to her.
I've been noticing her in the store and I made the comment to Jeff. And then when you guys made the comment, now everything's increased. in
Yeah,
regards to
because that veil's
activity.
gotten thin, so she's,
Absolutely.
yep. And I will let you know that October, yes, we do get a lot of calls from people because they are, like the Ouija board, they're messing with things this time of the year. So they are doing it. We do not recommend anyone to mess with a Ouija board unless you actually know how do you do it. Because once you use it and you're not protected and you don't close it, it's open to the world. Anything can come through. So you have to be careful, you know, on what it is. So if somebody says, do you use a Ouija board? No, we don't. We don't mess with it. We don't recommend it. It's not a good game to play with for kids. It's not a good tool at all unless you know what you're doing. So please don't mess with it. I don't want you calling me and saying, I messed with a Ouija board. Okay, just get Jeff. Mhm.
I just want to say I appreciate what you're talking about. I'm not from here. I'm visiting my mother-in-law, and I sell real estate. And back in Iowa, where I live, and I've always kind of like felt like I've had this spirit, but I don't acknowledge it because I get very freaked out and I think I'm crazy and that kind of stuff. But I've had incidences where I've shown 3 different houses, and I like the minute we walk in, I'm like, ooh, like I can feel something, but I'm like, don't you dare say anything. And then each time, then like the person that I've been with, or the like husband and wife or whatever I've been with, like once it even like there was like this pound, and then it was like silent, and the whole time like I could even feel it in my tongue, like it was, and it was like pound, and they're like, we gotta get out of here, and I'm like, I thought that from the minute we opened the door.
I will tell you, as a real estate agent,
Yeah.
the newest thing is people are having us investigate the houses before they decide to buy.
Oh,
Yeah,
Yes.
they're having it.
interesting.
It says on table.
My book.
Yeah.
My book's on the table.
See, I always ask in the house.
Are you talking about my book?
Which that requires legal disclosure. So
Yeah.
But in my book, I also talk about Jeff because he did do a little thing at the Manatee Players. I don't quote because you'll have to hear the exact words he used. My publisher didn't like it, so I cleaned it up a little bit. But he did have an experience there, and we shared it in the book. So it was kind of neat, because the same thing happened to me. I actually saw the same thing, but it was a little bit nicer to me. Yes.
I have a question. A long time ago, I was in a trailer, and my friends kept saying there was someone was in there. Well, they said if you look in the TV, turn the TV off and look in the TV, and I sit on the couch and I could see forms next to me. So I looked in every TV and I've never seen that. And then I saw in the TV a woman dressed in a big gown, like an old gown, and then a guy, a cowboy from the old West. They were from the old West. But have you ever experienced that where you, and I've looked and never seen on TV where every house they're going now when it's off, because it scared me. It was really there.
Oh yeah, they can. You can see it in mirrors. You can see it
I've
in
never seen it.
picture frames. Yeah, oh yeah.
Until then, that's the first time, and
Yep.
then it scared me so bad.
And more than likely, they were probably somewhere right around you, standing
Yeah.
behind you,
They
and
were
you were
right
seeing
there.
the reflection of them
Oh.
in the TV.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay. And
that's
then I
what-
was in a church and I felt someone touch me, and I said, "Just leave me alone. I just don't want to know you. I'm scared." I mean, it's probably a nice person because it was in the church and I felt
Mhm.
comforting, but it scared me so bad.
Yeah.
Well, that's what you do is tell them to leave you
Yeah.
alone.
That's what you do. And
Yeah.
you
Yes.
do?
Yes.
Not always, but most of the time they do. They do respect your boundaries. Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you're in your home and you feel that way, tell them this is your home and leave you alone. Because if you take command most of the time, like Jeff says, you're the more powerful one, they do listen to you. It's just sometimes they want attention. They need to tell you something. They need their story out. Something like that. When we were doing for our ghost walk, mapping it out, we actually came across a spirit that told us that she was murdered over money. Well, when Jeff did our ghost walk, he said, "Oh, she was murdered by another woman." Well, it made sense because it was where prostitutes were. So they were probably but once she told us that, we've never been able to communicate with her again. So she just wanted someone to get her story out and have it said. Because I think on record it shows that a woman was murdered, and that's it. No age, no name, no nothing. Because that's how they recorded things back then for the prostitutes. And the same thing with slaves. They didn't put their names, things like that. The family was responsible when they put it on the tombstone, to mark in the tombstone how it was. But that's how, it shows you. And I will let you know, a lot of things we think are barbaric that they did back then, in 100 years, they're gonna think what we did are barbaric. So it's just, you just have to go with this is the way life is, and it is so. But I have to tell you this one story. You asked about my abilities, and I wanted to tell you about that. As I told you, I grew up in a house. The house was haunted. It was haunted by a man, and he would come down from the attic when I shared a bedroom with my son. My brother. And I was 6. He was, he must have been 3. And so I would hear this, and I'd get scared because I could feel him standing there. So I'd always cover my head up with a sheet. Well, when I moved upstairs, when I got older with my other sister, he would come out of the attic and he would sit on the edge of the bed, and you could actually see the imprint out like that while he was sitting there. You could not move your legs. Like it was just like somebody was sitting there. So I got to the point where I found the attic was interesting. So I'd go in and talk to him and stuff. And of course, back then, no, you don't talk about this stuff. You're crazy. So I didn't really talk to anybody about it. But after a while, when I got a little older and was old enough to know what to do, I researched and found out that the owner of the house actually, his wife died in the house, and then he later committed suicide because he missed her so much. I went back 2 years ago to visit, and this is in Minnesota. My daughter took me back 2 years ago, and we drove by the house, and I took a picture of the attic window, and there was his face. So he's still there today. So it is kind of neat that he's around. My daughter, we do a lot of road trips because he's unable to travel a lot. So she took me to Franklin, Tennessee. I love the Civil War things, and and Indian battles and things like that. I love that type of history. So when I go into any cemetery, when I see a soldier's grave, I nod my head. Doesn't matter if I'm from the north and you're from the south. I nod my head because you served your country, period. And so I went through this Confederate grave on this property, and it had a big battle there. And the Union soldiers were actually moved to another area. And so I walked through for every grave and nodded my head. A lot of them were unknown soldiers. And when we got to the end, my daughter's at the other end of the cemetery. I looked up at her, I turned my head, and there was a Civil War soldier, and he nodded his head at me and disappeared. So he was saying, "Thank you back." That's the way I felt that he was doing it. And it actually was one of the houses was on Haunted Live last night, one of the ghost shows. So I don't know. I didn't watch it though. Yes.
So I'll try to make it really quick. So I moved into this rental home 4 years ago. I'm from Colorado, and so from the beginning, the house had a lot of repairs, and the past year has been horrible. Since May, I probably had 60 repairs or more. Just everything breaking, including the air conditioner that is only 4 years old. And the landlord can explain it. And he's like, "I don't know what's going on with it." And I'm like, "Must be haunted." And everybody just laughs.
Yeah.
And so I'm
Yeah,
like, maybe
they will.
I've been saying I maybe have a single woman that never got married. She just wants to see all these guys because all males that come into the house. And I'm like, "Are you happy now?" So I'm like, "Where am I getting this thing?" So I talked to my mentor. She's in California. And so she can pick up energies, and she said, "Wow, you have like a Starbucks in your home right now. You need to stop it. All these spirits are very nurturing. So all these spirits, they just love to stop by, and you have a 7-year-old boy that loves to play with electricity. He's the one messing up with the power, with my bathroom light. And so that spirit feels so sweet. This is because it's a child, right? So I took a trip, and when I came back in July, I went to pee in my bathroom, and he started playing with the lights, and I was like, I miss you too. Like I felt like that whatever that was.
But he was welcoming you back home and
yeah,
saying, "Yeah, I
so
miss
happy,
you."
Like I really miss you.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I miss you too. So I'm peeing, and I'm like, did I just say that to the light? Like, what is going on? So now I got more clarity. So I need to do a cleansing in my house. So also there's a woman that was telling my oldest son, since 4 years ago, get out of the bedroom. So my child had panic attacks, anxiety, couldn't sleep. So anyways, I was able to, I thought I cleaned the house so she would go, but my mentor said, no, she's by his window. She said, you did a really good job of kicking her out of the house, but she's so attached. She has an unfinished business. So I have a 7-year-old boy, and then I have the Starbucks situation going on. So is that a porter in my home? Is it me? What is it?
For me to tell you that, I'd have to do an investigation. If you want a direct answer right now, you'd have to check with Jeff,
Yeah.
because he's the one that could tell you right off the bat.
They're so cool spirits.
Yeah.
There's nothing bad.
Yeah.
They're just like really cool.
Most time we tell you if it's a, a nice spirit and and you can get along with it, coexist with it. Just let it know its boundaries. That's the way it is. And I know we're running out of
No,
time.
I'm not even worried about that.
Oh,
You have a lot of people asking
okay.
what app you use.
Oh, it's called Ghost Hunters Tool.
Ghost Hunters 2?
You're on
Page.
the line.
Ghost Hunters Tool.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
what I got. So, it said Paige.
Yeah, and Henry.
Okay. So it's like this. Can you see it okay?
Yeah.
And it's called Ghost Hunters
Hunters Tool.
It's got a handprint.
Yeah, it'll be a blue background with a handprint. And you can get it on iPhones. Yep.
Yeah, perfect. Okay. Sweet.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It works pretty. Oh, now we got Henry here. Before it was Paige. Now we have Henry. Does anybody have anybody that has this name that's passed over?
That's the two children in the TV show The Americans.
Okay, well, I don't know. The meter's going off to what you just said. But it's strange, that you can pick. Sometimes the names, come and go, so I don't always take them. But if somebody comes along and says, "Oh yeah," okay, that makes sense. So does anybody else have any questions? Nope. Well, if you want a book, I'm here to autograph them today, so I can do it if you want. And if not, Jeff and Dawn are going to be carrying them too for me. Okay?
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.